Story 1. Having to read the same page 15 times to actually absorb any of the information. Also, having to continually rewind movies and television shows to get back up to speed. Story 2. Executive dysfunction. I feel like I'm screaming at myself to do anything functional and am just watching from a distance as I plug along. Meanwhile, I know I possess the capacity to go vroom. Story 3. I hate when someone asks a question and I have a really good response. Then I start responding, and in the middle of it, I realize I've forgotten what the question is. I've forgotten what I've been talking about, and I've forgotten where I was going. Then I stammer for a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, so that's what I meant. Story 4. For me, it is definitely keeping focus on tasks and staying organized. I will start something and then totally forget about it, which makes everything feel chaotic. Story 5. I feel like it's an issue of executive function, especially for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder patients who struggle to start organizing tasks, like prioritizing and then focusing on non-stimulating activities. This often leads to related emotional challenges as well. Story 6. Anybody else with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder ever have that feeling where there is so much to do, but you can't bring yourself to do anything? Like you just sit around thinking about how much you have to do. Story 7. Starting something. When I've started, I can often focus enough to complete a task unless it's really boring, but I find it a real struggle to go from I should or want to do a thing to actually doing it. Story 8. Motivation paralysis. Knowing there are things I need to do and just not being able to do them. Sometimes it even applies to things I actually want to do too. Story 9. Getting really into a hobby for a couple of months, buying expensive equipment, then entirely forgetting it exists for several years. Damn it, I'm really good at some of those hobbies. Story 10. Time blindness. I'm late to everything. I have to try really hard to be on time to things, and even then, it's still not always a guarantee. And it's not that I don't think things or people are important. I just really don't know how to describe it. But I'm trying my best. Story 11. Convincing myself that someone does or does not care about me and then not acknowledging what effect it has on my mental health, because my mind runs 100 miles a minute and I have too much to get done. Story 12. Rushing through life. You know when people climb a huge mountain and they get to the top and look at the view? They sigh and feel a sense of accomplishment and achievement that I've just never experienced. I get to the top and go, okay, what now? Story 13. For me, it's small tasks that are never done, like cleaning the house, mowing the lawn, and doing the dishes. I do them all because I know they need to be done, but I often leave them much longer than I should. Because there's no real feeling of accomplishment from doing them, there's very little dopamine reward. I do it, then a couple of days later, it has to be done again. There's no end, there's no reward, there's no satisfaction. There are just endless little unpleasant jobs that need to be done forever. Add to that the fact that my brain often functions as out of sight, out of mind. If I don't frequent a room in the house, or if I haven't used dishes in a few days, so I haven't added to the dishes, I forget that it even needs to be cleaned. I have to basically schedule specific days to clean specific places or things, or they won't get cleaned because they don't feel rewarding to do, so I have no drive to do them. Another thing I'll do is basically something else I know needs to be done, to procrastinate on doing a particularly mundane or non-rewarding task. I essentially do something bigger to put off doing smaller stuff, but there's always something bigger, and the smaller stuff will go undone until it becomes something big. Story 14. Easily the biggest problem about having attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder for me is that I often struggle to establish and maintain friendships with other people, and I experience a lot of rejection and loneliness as a result. My brain works differently from most people, so inevitably, the way I think, feel, and express myself is different from how most people do those things. I often experience rejection because the way I enjoy interacting with people and the way they want me to interact with them are incongruous. As a result, many people find me annoying, rude, self-absorbed, standoffish, inconsiderate, and subjectively weird. Frequent rejection in every sense of the word has substantially and negatively impacted my self-esteem. I spent most of my teenage and early adult years very depressed because I thought that everyone hated me and that I was unlovable. Thankfully, years of therapy and spiritual practice have helped me learn how to put things into context and be more objective. People don't have to like me for me to have worth. And if people find me annoying, that doesn't mean that there is something fundamentally wrong with me. There is such a thing as incompatibility. Not everyone gets along with everyone else, and that's okay. Another thing that objectively reviewing my life has shown me is that the people who reject me are usually not the kinds of people I want in my life anyway, and the people who gravitate toward me and accept me as I am are often very reliable, trustworthy, patient, and kind. In other words, I now feel gratitude for my tendency to push certain people away because, although I experience a lot of rejection, my social discrepancies ultimately work as a filter to screen toxic people out of my life. It would not be relevant to list all the positives of having attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder here because the question explicitly asked for struggles. Still, overall, I'm wholeheartedly grateful for my neurodivergence because it gives me many more gifts than it does struggles. In short, attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder has caused me to experience a lot of rejection, and I have spent a lot of time and effort repairing the damage that has caused. Story 15. Procrastination in my personal administration. I can't do it until I have the following criteria met. I have the time to do it properly. I have the focus to start it. The deadline is close enough to make it appear on my mental anxiety to-do list. Story 16. Struggling to text and call my family and friends leads to guilt and anxiety that they may think I don't care or don't want to put effort into the relationship. Organizing and planning to see my friends is also hard. After I finally arrange something and see them, I feel so happy and good, but my brain doesn't seem to connect the two when it comes to actually picking up my phone and planning something with friends or family. Struggling to maintain routine and structure in my day-to-day life leaves me feeling pointless and unproductive. I then feel guilty about my unproductiveness. I always thought back to when I was younger and didn't struggle with routines, but then I realized it came naturally because it was enforced by an external party like school or parents. Now that I don't have that external motivation, I find myself exhausted with day-to-day things, having to balance it on my own with no accountability as a driver. Hope someone can relate. Story 17. A lot of people don't appreciate how it requires a tremendous amount of discipline just to do stuff I enjoy. Simple, straightforward stuff like playing video games or listening to albums I love. It's so much easier to just space out and do nothing in particular. I firmly believe the modern internet doesn't cause attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but it sure seems to be custom-made to prey on us. Story 18. I'd say tearing myself away from intense focus and managing emotions is a challenge. For instance, I have to explain to people that if something captures my imagination, I find it nearly impossible to think about anything else, and the opposite is also true. If I don't care about something, I can't keep it in my head. And when I feel emotions, I feel them much stronger than most people. I can't hide what I'm thinking. When I'm upset, I'm in tears. When I laugh, I'm in hysterics. When I'm angry, I want to drive my car through a wall. Story 19. People here are going to say focus, but I want to illustrate. I need to get breakfast, but I also need to shower, brush my teeth, get dressed, and take my medications. Not only is there not a set order for these things, but there's no set order for the steps of doing these things. I might get the milk out before I'm distracted by the want to brush my teeth, then have the toothpaste on the toothbrush when I get distracted by the need to dress. Then I'll have only my boxer shorts on when I realize I should shower before I dress. I'll have showered, and I'll be thinking about dressing when I see the toothbrush with the toothpaste still on it. That's distracting enough to have me walk to the medicine box naked. I can't take my medications yet because it needs to be after food, so I'll go to food, but I can't go downstairs naked, so it's time to get dressed. By the time I've got some clothes on, I've forgotten about the medications. It's not that I'm stupid or can't conceive of the idea that there's an order that these events should go in. I could write down the steps that need to be done in a sensible order. What I lack is the ability to keep my brain on that track. Story 20. I'm going to do the dishes. Oh, this rag is dirty. Better take it to the washer. Oh, I need to do laundry. Better go grab the laundry out of my room. I should pee first. This bathroom is a disaster. Might as well start here. What's that smell? Oh no, my toast. Why are you meowing at me, cat? You need food? I guess I should go to the store. There's the car wash. I should stop and wash my car. Wait, I just passed the bank. Got to turn around. Oh, there's a garage sale. I just found a nice guitar. Better get home and play it. Ah, I forgot to put my clothes in the washer. They could have been done by now. Hi, cat. Why are you still meowing at me? Ah, I was supposed to go to the store. This will occupy just an hour of the day. It never ends. Story 21. I have the worst executive dysfunction of anyone I've ever met. If I have somewhere to be that's even remotely important, I will literally spend half of the day trying to figure out what I'm going to wear. And then I panic and wear something last minute that I'm self-conscious about. And then I stress the next day because I remember what I should have worn that would look better. I have adult onset attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, severe anxiety, and I have what's called purely obsessional obsessive compulsive disorder. So I obsess about everything possible with no compulsions. I'm having so much fun. Edit. The executive dysfunction is more about how I have zero skills in prioritizing what's important in my life, but it's weird that I can do it just fine at work. Also, I just had an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder moment of going off track again. Story 22. People think telling you off for staring into space or fidgeting works. It does not. It just makes mental health worse without doing anything meaningful. Story 23. It's so bad that I have to consider if I am also autistic. I was diagnosed as an adult and medicated once it affected work. I am paralyzed by communication. I have 3 college degrees, but it was hard to will my way through that. I'm bad at deadlines and forgetting things. There's my 30-second response, laugh out loud. Story 24. Emotional regulation. Executive functioning disorder is a condition that is very manageable through proper planning techniques and learning routines, or however you want to call it. The ability to regulate your emotions, on the other hand, which is by far the most important aspect for both your psychological well-being and your physical brain, is heavily worsened in people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. For me, it's aggressiveness and an incredibly low frustration threshold. It's absolutely the biggest struggle I've encountered. It's strange, though. I'm very capable of handling emotions during significant events where it's normal to be emotionally upset. Relatives dying, panic breaking out, losing the finals in the World Cup. All these things that normally upset people heavily, I tend to manage reasonably well. It's the small things. Failing to get something done quickly, unconsciously entering a very frustrating social interaction, losing things and not finding them for half an hour, that can absolutely break my mind. Story 25. Taking care of myself. I'm not depressed. I've been depressed before. I just have zero motivation, absolutely none, if the thing that needs doing does not give dopamine. So, basically, things like moving, eating, and showering are really difficult. Story 26. You mean I have to recognize I am hungry, decide what sounds appealing, gather the energy and executive function to make that thing, eat that thing, and clean up afterwards 3 times a day, every day for the rest of my life? Absolutely not. Story 27. Time blindness. I don't feel the passage of time, so sometimes my backlog of tasks suddenly becomes a lot because I think I received the task yesterday. But really it has been like a week, so I really should get to it. It's frustrating because just as I've started working out my procrastination issue, a new challenge comes up. Story 28. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria. It is impossible for me to work in a team of people because I'm convinced they all hate me by the 3rd day, and I end up quitting whatever job I'm doing to save myself from the torture of being hated. Story 29. Zoning out, losing track of time spent on something if my brain actually finally latches onto something. 5 minutes turn into 30. 30 minutes turn into an hour. An hour turns into several. Naturally, it's usually not the most important thing that I should be focusing on at any given time. That, and also the fact that my natural circadian rhythm and sleep schedule categorically do not align with most of the world. Either I'm permanently short on sleep and jet-lagged, or fully functional at a time when nobody else is even awake. Also, the rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Most of the time, it's not even directly from something someone else said or did. It's from a fanciful notion that I built up in my own head, one that I fully know is utterly unlikely. And yet, as I'm winding down and replaying the day in my mind will remind me over and over how everyone must truly hate me. For instance, I, the deeply introverted, socially withdrawn, gray ace-ish nerd, somehow did not suddenly become the most charming person in the world, And I went home alone after an otherwise enjoyable evening out with people, where there was no express purpose for finding dates or anything like that, just hanging out, having a drink with friends and coworkers. Clearly, all that wonderful company means nothing. This weird flight of fancy in my mind didn't come true. Therefore, the evening must start to taste foul in my mind, and the floor falls out from under me as I go into full melodramatic teenage mode, internally. Or like, if someone ever makes a mild, offhand, yet entirely reasonable criticism of me or something I've done, it can likewise knock the wind out of my sails, my legs out from under me, etc., and send me spiraling internally. It's honestly a pain to feel so volatile. Now that I'm aware of what the root of it is, I can try to recognize and reason my way out of the spiral. I find that giving that part of my inner voice the shitty, whiny teenager affect can help ground me a bit and make the other conscious parts of my mind realize just how ridiculous and over the top the freak out all sounds. I also struggle with keeping comments and such brief and focused, yet have trouble making myself read long comments posted by someone else.